The market of Leora City stretched as far as the eye could see. It was the heart of the alien world, a place where traders from across the stars came to sell, bargain, and boast about treasures that had traveled light years. Stalls lined the wide stone streets overflowing with bright fabrics, strange glowing fruits, metallic tools, and artifacts that whispered of ancient civilizations. The air was thick with smells, sweet spices, roasted meat, and the sharp tang of oil and machinery. Shouts of merchants echoed through the air, their voices competing with the sound of instruments played by wandering performers. Amid the bustle walked a young alien girl named Soraya. She was not wealthy, nor was she a noble, but she carried something far more valuable than gold or coin. Around her neck hung an amulet, oval-shaped, made of silver metal, and holding in its center a soft blue crystal that seemed to glow faintly when touched by sunlight. To most it looked like jewelry. To her it was everything. It was the last gift her mother had given her before passing away, a symbol of her family's honor and her connection to a lineage that stretched back through generations. Soraya moved, carefully through the crowd, one hand always resting lightly against the amulet as if to guard it. She wore a simple tunic of pale fabric, woven by her grandmother. Her mind was not on the market stalls but on the memory of her mother's voice reminding her always, "Protect the amulet, Soraya. It carries more than stone. It carries spirit." She did not notice the eyes that followed her. In the darker corners of the market, a group of thieves lurked. They were rough-looking, their clothes patched and dirty, their eyes sharp with greed. Their leader, a tall alien with scarred skin, nudged his companions and pointed toward Soraya. "That crystal," he hissed. "Rare energy core, worth more than a year of trading, easy target, small girl, no guards." The thieves began to follow, slipping through the crowd with the ease of hunters. Soraya felt unease crawl across her skin, but when she turned, all she saw were strangers moving about their business. She quickened her pace, weaving between stalls. But the thieves moved faster. It happened in an instant. One thief grabbed her arm, another reached for her chest where the amulet rested. Soraya cried out, stumbling. As the leader ripped the chain from her neck, the force tore her tunic at the shoulder, leaving the fabric ripped and her dignity shaken. She clutched at the cloth, fear rising in her throat as the thieves laughed. "Leave me," she pleaded. "That amulet is not for you." But they only grinned. "It's not yours anymore," the leader sneered, holding the glowing crystal. "Hi." The crowd saw, but no one moved. Merchants pulled their wares closer, parents hurried their children away, and passers-by lowered their heads. No one wanted to stand against the thieves who ruled the shadows of the city. No one, except one human. Ethan Cole was a traveler, a pilot who had come to Leora for fuel and supplies. He was used to seeing injustice on distant worlds, but something about this moment pierced him deeply. He had seen greed before and cruelty, but the sight of a frightened girl clutching at her torn tunic while her last memory of her mother was ripped away, it struck a chord that no man with honor could ignore. He pushed through the crowd, his boots striking the stone street with purpose. His eyes locked on the thieves and his voice cut through the laughter. "Enough." The thieves turned, surprised. Ethan was tall by human standards, broad-shouldered, with a weathered jacket and the look of someone who had fought his way through more than one hard life. His face was calm, but his jaw was set. He didn't look like a soldier, not with his unshaven chin and travel-worn clothes, but there was something in his stance that warned of strength. The leader narrowed his eyes. "This is none of your concern, off-worlder. Walk away." Ethan shook his head slowly. "That doesn't belong to you, give it back." The crowd watched with wide eyes. A whisper spread among them. A human. Humans were rare in Leora City, and their reputation was mixed. Some said they were reckless. Others said they were dangerous, but none could deny they were stubborn. The thieves laughed at him. "One man against us? You think you can stop us?" Ethan didn't answer. He took a step closer. Soraya looked at him, her eyes wide with shock. No one had ever stepped forward for her before, not like this. Her voice was small but trembling with hope. "Please," she whispered. "Don't let them take it." The leader waved his hand and two thieves lunged at Ethan. The first swung a fist, but Ethan ducked, catching the arm and twisting it sharply, sending the thief crashing into a stall of fruit. The second rushed him with a knife, but Ethan grabbed a wooden staff leaning against a merchant's cart and swung it with precision, knocking the weapon from the thief's hand. The crowd gasped. Some began to cheer quietly, though most still stayed back, fearful of what would come. The leader snarled, tightening his grip on the amulet. "You'll regret this, human. Do you even know what you're protecting?" "I don't need to," Ethan replied firmly. "It's hers. That's enough." Soraya's heart pounded. The fight, the bravery, the stranger who had no reason to help her yet stood unshaken. It was more than she had dared to hope. She clutched the torn fabric of her tunic close, but her eyes stayed fixed on him. The leader of the thieves stepped forward, his scarred face twisted in anger. Around him, his men hesitated, wary now of the human who fought with skill and confidence. The market had gone silent except for the beating of Soraya's heart and the heavy breaths of the thieves. Ethan lifted the staff, his eyes steady. "Last chance. Give it back." The leader only laughed darkly. "No human can stop us. This crystal will bring us riches you cannot imagine." He gestured to his men. "Take him down." The thieves roared and charged. Ethan braced himself, ready to fight. The crowd gasped again, watching history unfold. Not just a fight in a market, but the beginning of something greater. For in that moment, Soraya realized this human was not like the rest. He would not walk away. He would not abandon her. And for the first time since her mother's passing, she felt a spark of hope rise inside her chest. The battle for the amulet and for her honor had begun. The market was still alive with noise, but now all the sounds were pulled toward one point: the clash between a lone human and a band of alien thieves. Stalls had gone quiet, merchants stood frozen, and parents shielded their children while peeking from behind baskets and curtains. Everyone wanted to know what would happen, but none dared to step into the storm. Ethan gripped the wooden staff he had taken from a merchant's cart. His eyes never left the thieves. They circled him like hungry predators, their teeth bared and their hands clutching knives, hooks, and crude metal rods. The leader of the thieves, the tall alien with scars down his face, still clutched the amulet, tightly in his palm. Its crystal glimmered faintly in the sunlight, as if mocking Soraya's despair. Soraya herself stood behind Ethan, clutching the torn edges of her tunic with trembling fingers. Her eyes darted between the human and the thieves. She wanted to shout, to tell him to run, but her voice caught in her throat. Something told her he wouldn't leave even if she begged him to. The first thief lunged forward, swinging a jagged knife. Ethan twisted his body aside and slammed the staff across the thief's ribs. A grunt of pain followed as the thief stumbled backward into a fruit cart, knocking down baskets of yellow berries that rolled across the stones. The second came faster, thrusting a short spear. Ethan's eyes sharpened. He stepped in, pushing the staff downward, deflecting the strike, and then heaved his shoulder into the attacker's chest. The alien went sprawling into the dust, gasping for air. The crowd gasped. Whispers rushed like wind. "The human fights like a soldier. He's strong. Why would he risk his life for her?" The leader snarled, anger flashing across his face. "Do not just circle him, take him down together." 3 more thieves charged at once. Ethan tightened his grip. He moved quickly, using the staff not just as a weapon but as an extension of his will. He struck low at one's knee, spun, and brought the other end up to crack across another's jaw. The third managed to slash his arm, drawing a thin line of blood, but Ethan didn't flinch. He swung the staff back with force, knocking the knife from the thief's grip and sending it clattering to the stones. Soraya's breath caught. She had never seen anyone fight like this. Humans were not known for great strength among her people, but there was something else here. Determination. It was not power of muscle alone, it was his will, his refusal to yield. "Why are you doing this?" she finally cried out. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were wide, searching. "You don't even know me. That amulet, it is only mine." Ethan's voice came calm, though his chest heaved with effort. "Because no one else will." That answer struck her heart harder than any weapon could. No one else will. It was true. The market had turned away. Her own neighbors hid. And yet this off-worlder, a stranger, chose to fight for her as if it mattered to him too. The leader of the thieves finally stepped forward. He was taller and broader than the others, with scars carved deep into his skin like history, etched in stone. He sneered, holding the amulet high. "This is wasted on a child. Do you even know what you carry, girl? This crystal is not just jewelry. It is a fragment of star energy, a shard of what powers ships, weapons, even cities. With this, I could buy armies." His words made the crowd murmur, voices rising in fear and greed. Soraya's heart sank. She had always thought the amulet was just a symbol of her mother's love, a piece of beauty that connected her to the past. Now she realized it was more. That knowledge made her clutch her chest even tighter, as if the torn cloth might hold in her breaking breath. Ethan's gaze never wavered. "You think stealing it makes it yours? It doesn't. It belongs to her and you'll give it back," the scarred leader smirked. "Or what, human? You'll bleed on these stones? Your kind is stubborn, but you are only flesh." He raised his hand and 5 thieves rushed Ethan together. The staff cracked against one skull, then spun to knock aside a blade. Ethan ducked under a swinging rod, rolled across the ground, and came up behind another attacker, shoving him into his companions. The fight was furious. Dust rose, fruit spilled, baskets overturned. Stalls collapsed as the battle tore through the market square. The leader stood back, watching with narrowed eyes. He did not rush. He studied. And in that patience, he planned. Soraya wanted to scream for help, but something else held her tongue. She saw the way Ethan fought, how he refused to step back even when blood ran down his arm. He looked like a man standing on a cliff, battered by storm after storm, yet never stepping away from the edge. She realized he was not fighting for riches or pride. He was fighting because he believed someone had to. The last of the thieves staggered back, groaning on the ground. Ethan stood tall, chest heaving, staff still gripped tightly. Sweat ran down his forehead, but his eyes burned like fire. The crowd broke into whispers again. Some dared to cheer softly, though most stayed silent. Fear of the thieves' revenge held them back. But the leader only laughed, cold and sharp. "Impressive, human, but you cannot win forever." He pulled a curved blade from his belt, its edge glinting in the sunlight. The amulet hung from his other hand. "This ends now." He advanced, every step slow and deliberate. Ethan lifted the staff, planting his feet firmly on the stones. Soraya's heart pounded in her chest. Her fingers dug into her palms as she whispered a silent prayer. The leader struck fast, faster than his size suggested. Ethan blocked, but the impact jolted his arms. The second strike came low, forcing him back a step. The third grazed his side, leaving a shallow cut. The scarred alien pressed forward, his strength relentless. Ethan gritted his teeth. Each blow rattled his bones, but he refused to fall. He countered with a swift jab, striking the leader's shoulder, but the alien barely flinched. The fight dragged on, each strike echoing like thunder through the square. Soraya could not hold back anymore. She shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Hold on, please don't give up." Ethan glanced back just for a moment. Her eyes met his, filled with fear but also with trust. That trust gave him strength he didn't know he had. He braced himself and swung the staff in a wide arc. The leader ducked, but Ethan shifted his weight and slammed the other end into the alien's ribs. The scarred thief grunted, stumbling back. The crowd gasped again, louder this time. The leader growled, clutching his side. His eyes burned with fury. "You will pay for this, both of you." He glanced around, realizing his men were down, groaning in the dust. He snarled at Soraya, then at Ethan, before retreating into the alleyways with the amulet still in his grip. The fight was not finished. Ethan dropped the staff for a moment, his chest heaving with exhaustion. Soraya rushed to his side, her torn tunic still clutched at her shoulder. She looked at him with wide eyes, her lips trembling. You stopped them," she whispered. He shook his head. "Not yet. He still has what belongs to you." Soraya swallowed hard, tears welling in her eyes. You don't have to follow him. You've already done so much. They'll kill you if you go after them. Ethan wiped the blood from his arm and looked at her, his expression calm but resolute. I'm not leaving until you get it back. The market, silent a moment before, erupted with whispers again. People stared at him with disbelief. Who was this human, this stranger, who fought thieves and now promised to chase them further? Soraya felt her chest tighten. For the first time. In years since her mother's passing, she did not feel entirely alone. This human stood between her and the darkness, and he did so without hesitation. The leader was gone into the Undercity. The amulet was still lost. But the fight was no longer just Soraya's burden. It had become theirs. The market slowly returned to its noisy rhythm, but the air was not the same. People whispered about the fight they had just seen, glancing at Ethan and Soraya as if unsure whether to admire them or avoid their trouble. Broken stalls lay scattered, fruit and fabric littering the ground where the thieves had fallen. Yet the most important thing, the amulet, was gone, stolen by the scarred leader who had fled into the shadows. Ethan stood with his staff still in hand, sweat dripping from his brow. His chest rose and fell heavily, but his eyes were steady. Soraya clutched the torn cloth of her tunic, her body trembling, though not entirely from fear now. She looked at him, her voice soft but filled with urgency. He will not stop. The leader knows the truth about the amulet. If he escapes the city with it, I will never see it again. Ethan nodded. Then we go after him. Her eyes widened. We? You want it back. I promise to help you, Ethan said simply. Besides, thieves like him don't give up unless someone forces them. Soraya hesitated. She had never chased danger before. Her life until now had been quiet, helping her grandmother, walking the market, keeping her head low. But the amulet was all she had left of her mother. If she let it slip away, it would feel like losing her all over again. Her heart hardened. Then we go, she whispered. The two slipped into the alleys at the edge of the market. Here the streets were narrower, the walls higher, casting shadows that blocked out much of the sky. The Undercity stretched below Leora, like a hidden maze filled with abandoned tunnels, old trade routes, and dark places where law never reached. The scarred leader would vanish there if they were too slow. Soraya led the way at first. Though she had never dared to wander deep into the Undercity, she knew enough of the streets to follow the signs, the scrape of boots on dust, the sound of a dropped coin echoing against stone, the faint glimmer of a blue crystal ahead. Ethan followed close, his eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. His steps were quiet, but his senses were sharp. The deeper they went, the fewer people they saw. Merchants vanished, replaced by shuttered doors and broken lanterns. Stray animals scurried between trash piles. The air grew colder. Strange symbols were painted on walls, marking territories of gangs that ruled the Undercity like kings. Soraya shivered. I have always avoided this place. The city guards never come here. Ethan gave her a small smile. That makes it the perfect place for thieves. But don't worry, I've seen worse. She glanced at him, curious. His tone was calm, but his eyes carried weight, like someone who had walked through many battles, on many worlds. She wondered what kind of life he had lived before this day. A sudden shout echoed through the tunnels. They froze, pressing against the wall. Ahead, a group of rough-looking aliens sat around a fire built from broken crates. They wore the same gang markings as the scarred leader. One of them held up a piece of fruit and laughed, while another sharpened a blade on a stone. They'll see us if we walk through, Soraya whispered. Ethan studied the scene. They're guards, probably left to watch the path. If we turn back, we'll lose the leader. We need another way. He looked around. The alley wall was cracked, with a narrow passage barely visible behind a pile of debris. Ethan pushed aside the wood and found a gap big enough to crawl through. He motioned for Soraya. This way. Soraya hesitated but trusted him. They slipped through the gap, crawling on hands and knees until they emerged in a dim corridor. The floor was damp and the smell of mold filled the air. Soraya wrinkled her nose. What is this place? Old sewer tunnel, Ethan guessed. Still useful. They followed the tunnel, the sound of their footsteps echoing faintly. At last it opened into another part of the Undercity, a wide cavern lit by scattered lamps hanging from ropes. Here the thieves had gathered. Soraya gasped softly. Dozens of them stood around, trading stolen goods and laughing. In the center, on a makeshift table, sat the scarred leader. He leaned back, the amulet glowing faintly in his hand as he admired it. His voice carried across the cavern. With this crystal, we will control more than scraps of this city. We will rise above the markets, above the nobles. This shard of starfire will make us kings. The gang roared in approval. Soraya's hands clenched into fists. That does not belong to him. It is my family's. Ethan crouched beside her, studying the scene. He counted the thieves. Too many for a direct fight. We can't rush in, not yet. We'll need to think. Soraya looked at him nervously. But if we wait too long, he might sell it. Then we make a plan, Ethan said firmly. They hid in the shadows, whispering. Soraya explained what little she knew of the amulet, that her mother had once told her it was part of a larger crystal broken long ago and its power was meant only for guardians, not for thieves. Ethan listened carefully, his mind working. Power or not, he'll guard it closely. But thieves get careless when they think, they've won, he murmured. If we can create a distraction, I can get close enough to take it. Soraya swallowed. What kind of distraction? Ethan smiled faintly. The kind they won't expect. Before she could ask, a loud crash echoed across the cavern. Ethan had thrown a rock toward a stack of barrels. The gang jumped in surprise, some rushing toward the sound. Ethan motioned quickly. Stay here. He slipped into the shadows, moving with quiet steps. Soraya's heart raced as she watched him weave between crates and broken furniture, closing in on the leader. The scarred alien was distracted, barking orders at his men. Ethan moved closer, crouched low. His hand was inches from the amulet when one of the guards turned unexpectedly. Human! The guard shouted. The cavern exploded in chaos. The leader leapt to his feet, clutching the amulet tightly. Kill him! He roared. Ethan grabbed the nearest crate lid, using it as a shield, as knives and rods came swinging. He fought back, pushing through the crowd with speed and strength, but the numbers were overwhelming. Soraya's body moved before her mind could think. She leapt from her hiding place and shouted, her voice carrying across the cavern. Stop! That amulet is mine. It belongs to my family. The thieves hesitated for a moment, surprised. Their eyes turned to the small girl standing bravely, her torn tunic fluttering in the underground breeze. The leader sneered. Then watch as I keep it for myself. But Soraya's voice grew stronger. You are cowards. A whole gang against one human, and still you cannot win. My mother's spirit will curse you for touching what is not yours. Her words stung. Some of the thieves muttered uneasily. They believed in curses, in spirits, in omens. For the first time, doubt spread through their ranks. Ethan seized the moment. He shoved one thief aside, swung his improvised shield into another, and broke free of the circle. He locked eyes with Soraya, nodding. She understood. Their fight was not over. The leader snarled, furious. Enough of this game. Tomorrow I will sell this amulet to the highest bidder. Let the girl and her pet human chase shadows. They will never catch me again. With that, he ordered his men to retreat deeper into the tunnels. Within moments, the cavern emptied, leaving Ethan and Soraya alone in the flickering light of the lamps. Soraya's knees buckled and she fell to the ground, trembling. Ethan rushed to her side, steadying her. You were brave, he said softly. Standing up to them like that. She shook her head. I only said what I felt. But now, they will run farther. We will never catch them. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We will. Thieves are loud when they think they've won. He'll leave a trail and I'll find it. Soraya looked at him, her eyes wet with tears. Why do you care so much? Ethan's gaze was steady. Because no one else will. And because your mother's gift deserves better than to rot in the hands of cowards. For a long moment, Soraya was silent. Then she nodded. Her heart no longer felt so heavy. With him, she wasn't walking alone into the darkness. The Undercity still stretched ahead, dangerous and unknown. But together, they would keep chasing. The fight for the amulet, and for honor, was only just beginning. The tunnels of the Undercity stretched endlessly. They wound like veins beneath Leora City, filled with dust, dripping pipes, and the smell of damp stone. Ethan and Soraya moved carefully, guided only by faint marks left behind by the thieves. A dropped cloth here, a muddy footprint there, and the echo of laughter carried through the darkness. Soraya walked close to Ethan, her hand pressed against the wall to steady herself. She had never ventured this deep before. The Undercity was a place parents warned children about, filled with danger and lawless gangs. Yet here she was, chasing after the most dangerous gang of all. Ethan glanced back at her. You holding up? She nodded quickly, though her legs ached. I'm fine. I didn't know there were so many tunnels. There are always more paths than people realize, Ethan replied. But thieves are creatures of habit. They'll head for their stronghold. Somewhere they feel safe. Soraya tilted her head, curious. How do you know that? Ethan gave a small smile. Because I've chased thieves before. Different worlds, same story. Greed always hides in the shadows. His words carried the weight of experience, and Soraya felt a spark of reassurance. He wasn't just a stranger. He was someone who had lived through battles, someone who had chosen again and again to stand when others turned away. They finally reached a wide chamber lit by hanging lanterns. Crates were stacked high, stolen goods piled in corners, and thieves lounged around fires. At the center, the scarred leader stood proudly, the amulet still in his hand. Its crystal glowed brighter now, humming softly as if awakening. Soraya gasped. She had never seen it shine like that before. The leader raised the amulet high and the thieves cheered. Look at it. This is no simple ornament. This is power, pure and unbroken. With it, we will command ships, armies, and riches beyond imagination. The crystal pulsed, casting blue light across the cavern walls. The thieves stared in awe. Some dropped to their knees, whispering about destiny and fortune. Soraya whispered to Ethan, her voice trembling. He's wrong. That power was never meant for them. My mother said the amulet carries starfire, a piece of the Guardian's gift. It was given only to protect, never to destroy. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then if he keeps it, he'll only bring ruin. Soraya nodded, her eyes fierce despite her fear. We have to stop him. Ethan studied the cavern. There were too many thieves for a direct attack, but he also saw cracks in their unity. Some looked greedy, others fearful of the glowing crystal. The leader's pride was growing, but so was his recklessness. Ethan leaned close to Soraya. We can use their doubt. When people fight over treasure, they forget to guard it. Before she could answer, the leader's voice boomed again. This crystal is mine alone. You will follow me and I will lead us to glory. Murmurs rippled through the thieves. One bold voice called out, Why should you keep it? If it's so powerful, maybe it should be shared. The leader's eyes flashed with rage. He struck the thief across the face, sending him sprawling. Anyone who questions me will die where they stand. The cavern fell silent. Fear pressed heavy in the air. Soraya's hand trembled, but Ethan gave her a nod. Now, he whispered. She stepped forward from the shadows, her voice rising strong and clear. You think you control it, but you don't. That crystal was never yours. It belongs to my family. My mother carried it with honor. You cannot even hold it without corrupting its light. The leader spun around, his face twisted with fury. You again, the thieves gasped. Whispers spread quickly. She's the rightful heir. Her family owned it first. Is it cursed against thieves? The leader snarled at his men. Do not listen to her lies. But Ethan was already moving. He darted from the shadows, swinging a broken metal pipe like a staff. He struck one thief across the knee, then slammed another into the wall. The cavern erupted into chaos. The thieves scrambled, some rushing to defend their leader, others backing away in doubt. Ethan fought fiercely, his movements sharp and precise. Soraya ducked behind crates, searching for a way closer to the amulet. The leader clutched it tighter, holding it against his chest. "You will never take this from me," he roared. The crystal pulsed again, brighter now, its light reflecting off his scarred face. Soraya's heart raced. She could almost hear her mother's voice. "The amulet chooses its keeper. It shines for the one who carries honor." She shouted, "It will never shine for you." The leader roared in anger and raised the amulet high. The crystal flared, sending out a wave of blue energy that knocked crates aside and pushed several thieves to the ground. Some screamed and fled, terrified of its power. Ethan staggered but kept his footing. His eyes locked on Soraya. "Go!" he shouted. "Get closer!" She ran, weaving between debris, her breath ragged. The leader saw her and slashed with his blade, forcing her back. But Ethan charged, staff clashing against the leader's weapon. Sparks flew as wood struck metal. "Again and again, you don't deserve it," Ethan growled. "It belongs to the strong." The leader snarled back. Their fight raged across the cavern, steel and wood colliding. Ethan's arms ached, but he refused to give ground. He fought not for himself, but for Soraya, for her family, her dignity, her hope. Soraya watched, tears in her eyes as Ethan took blow after blow. She felt powerless, but then the amulet pulsed again. For a brief moment, its light reached toward her. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "It carries spirit." She realized the amulet was not only energy, it was a bond, a memory, a promise, and it was calling to her. "Ethan," she cried, "hold him just a moment longer." Ethan gritted his teeth and pushed hard, locking the leader's blade with his staff. The leader growled, straining to break free. Soraya leapt forward, her hands reaching for the amulet. The leader tried to pull away, but the crystal flared brilliantly, burning in his palm. He screamed, dropping it as if it were fire. The amulet tumbled to the ground, glowing brighter than ever before. Soraya caught it in her hands, clutching it tightly to her chest. The light softened instantly, wrapping her in a gentle blue glow. The cavern went silent. The thieves stared in awe and fear. "It accepts her," one whispered. "It shines for her alone." The leader's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with rage. "No, it is mine!" He lunged toward Soraya, but Ethan moved faster. With a roar, he swung his staff with all his strength, striking the leader square across the chest. The scarred alien crashed to the ground, gasping for breath. The remaining thieves, shaken by what they had witnessed, backed away. Some dropped their weapons, muttering about curses and rightful keepers. Others fled into the tunnels, unwilling to challenge the glow of the amulet. Soraya stood tall, the light of the crystal surrounding her. She looked down at the leader with steady eyes. "You were never worthy. This was meant to protect, not to destroy." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it. It's yours again." The leader groaned, his pride broken more than his body. The cavern that had once echoed with his power now felt empty. For the first time, Soraya felt the weight of the amulet not as a burden, but as a shield. She looked at Ethan, gratitude shining in her eyes. "I couldn't have done this without you." Ethan gave a faint smile. "Maybe, but the crystal chose you. I only gave it the chance." The thieves' stronghold lay in ruins. The leader was defeated, his followers scattered. But Ethan and Soraya both knew this was not the end. The amulet's power had been revealed, and word would spread. Others would come, greedy and dangerous. Yet for now, Soraya held it safely, the glow warm against her chest. She had reclaimed her mother's gift, and she was no longer alone. The fight was not over, but hope had returned. The cavern was still heavy with the echo of the fight. Broken crates lay scattered across the ground, Torches flickered weakly on the walls, and the smell of smoke and dust filled the air. Most of the thieves had fled after seeing the amulet. Glow for Scifi, convinced that no curse or blade could steal it from her now. Only a few remained, too stubborn or too fearful of their leader to abandon him. The scarred leader groaned where he had fallen, clutching his chest. His pride was shattered, but his rage had not dimmed. Slowly, he pushed himself back to his feet, eyes blazing with fury as he stared at Scifi. The crystal's light still glowed gently in her hands, warm and steady, as if protecting her. "You think this is over?" the leader hissed. His voice cracked with pain, but his tone still carried venom. "The amulet is more than you know. Do you think one little human and a frightened girl can keep it safe? Armies will come for it. Merchants will pay fortunes for it. And when they do, you will wish you had given it to me." Ethan stepped forward, planting himself between the leader and Scifi. His grip on the staff tightened. His voice was calm, steady, but filled with steel. "Maybe armies will come. Maybe others will want it, but they'll have to go through me first." The leader spat at the ground. "Foolish human. You cannot protect her forever." "Maybe not," Ethan admitted. His eyes narrowed. "But right. Now I can protect her from you." The leader roared and charged. His blade swung with fury, his movements desperate. Ethan braced himself and met him head-on. The staff cracked against steel again and again, sparks flying as wood met metal. Ethan's arms ached, but his stance never wavered. Each strike he blocked, each counter he delivered, was fueled not by pride but by purpose. Scifi watched, her heart pounding. The amulet's glow pulsed with her heartbeat, steadying her trembling hands. She wanted to run, but something inside her told her to stay. This was no longer just Ethan's fight. It was hers too. The leader swung low, forcing Ethan back a step. He pressed forward, blade flashing. But Ethan twisted, catching the strike with his staff, then drove his shoulder into the leader's chest. The scarred alien stumbled, gasping. Ethan struck again, the staff slamming against his ribs, then spun the weapon to knock the sword from his grip. The blade clattered to the ground. The leader froze, eyes wide. Ethan pointed the staff at his throat. "It's over," Ethan said firmly, but the scarred alien only sneered. "You think I need a blade?" He lunged suddenly, knocking the staff aside and grappling with Ethan. The two crashed to the ground, rolling across the dirt. Fists flew, grunts filled the cavern, and dust rose in clouds. Scifi's hands clenched around the amulet. She wanted to help, but fear held her still, until the crystal pulsed again. She felt warmth surge through her chest, a voice whispering in her memory. "The amulet shines for the one who carries honor. It does not belong to cowards." Her fear broke. She stepped forward. "Ethan!" she shouted. He glanced at her just long, enough to see her raise the amulet high. The crystal flared brilliantly, bathing the cavern in blue light. The thieves who had stayed cried out in terror, shielding their eyes. The leader froze mid-strike, blinded by the glow. Ethan seized the moment. With a final surge of strength, he shoved the scarred alien off and rose to his feet. His staff swung once more, striking the leader across the head. The scarred thief collapsed, groaning, then lay still. Silence fell. The cavern that had once roared with laughter and greed now felt empty and quiet. Only the faint hum of the amulet filled the air, like the steady beat of a heart. The remaining thieves stared at their fallen leader. Some dropped their weapons and fled into the shadows, unwilling to challenge the light that had chosen Scifi. Others knelt, whispering that the girl was blessed, that the amulet had judged them unworthy. Scifi lowered the crystal, its glow dimming back to a gentle shine. Her chest rose and fell quickly, but her eyes were steady now. She had faced her fear. She had stood not as a helpless child, but as her mother's daughter. Ethan walked to her side, leaning on the staff, his body bruised and bleeding but unbowed. He looked at her and gave a faint smile. "You did it." Scifi shook her head. "No, we did it. I would never have found this courage without you." Ethan chuckled softly. "Courage was already in you. I just reminded you it was there." The cavern slowly emptied as the thieves vanished into the undercity, leaving only the fallen leader behind. Soraya and Ethan made their way back through the tunnels, their steps slow but steady. The path that had once seemed endless and terrifying now felt different. She was no longer walking in darkness. When they finally emerged into the light of the market, the crowd that had once turned away now gathered around them. Whispers filled the air. The girl reclaimed the amulet. The human fought the thieves. The crystal chose its keeper. Soraya clutched the amulet close, her cheeks flushed with both exhaustion and pride. For the first time in her life, she felt not just like a survivor, but like someone worthy of the legacy her mother had left behind. An old merchant stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Child," he said, his voice shaking, "we saw the light. The amulet is truly yours. We will not forget this day." Soraya's eyes filled with tears. For so long, she had felt invisible. Now, she felt seen, not because of pity, but because of honor. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's not just hers. You all stood by and watched. Remember this moment, not just the crystal, but what it means to stand up when no one else will." The crowd grew quiet, his words sinking deep. As the market slowly returned to its rhythm, Soraya and Ethan walked together toward the city's edge. The sun was setting, painting the sky with streaks of gold and crimson. Soraya looked at him, her voice soft but steady. "You didn't have to help me. You could have walked away like everyone else." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I wouldn't have been able to live with myself. Sometimes doing the right thing is reason enough." She studied him for a long moment, then smiled. "Then I'm glad it was you who saw me." Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "I think it was you who showed me something. Reminded me why humans are called stubborn. We don't walk away from what matters." Soraya touched the amulet gently, its glow reflecting in her eyes. "And now I know what matters. Not just keeping this safe, but living in a way that honors it." Ethan nodded. "Your mother would be proud." Night fell as they reached the edge of the city. The stars shone above, distant but bright, scattered across the sky like countless crystals. Soraya looked up, clutching her amulet close, and for the first time since her mother's death, she felt at peace. She turned to Ethan. "What will you do now?" He shrugged lightly. "Keep moving, I suppose. That's what I've always done." Her smile grew faint, almost sad. "Then, will you leave?" Ethan looked at her for a moment, then at the amulet in her hands. "Not yet. You'll need someone to watch your back. And besides, I don't think the trouble is over." Soraya laughed softly, her eyes bright with relief. "Then maybe I won't feel so alone anymore." Ethan gave her a small nod. "You're not alone. Not now." Together they walked into the night, the human and the alien girl, bound not by blood or world but by courage. The market would remember the day the thieves were defeated. The city would whisper about the crystal that shone for its rightful heir, but only Soraya and Ethan would know the deeper truth, that in the darkest hour when everyone else turned away, one human fought back.